Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're gonna be diving deep into Oracle's BRM and Pipeline Manager.
Yeah.
These are the systems that make sure you get accurately billed for services like your phone or internet.
Right. Yeah, we're dissecting excerpts from Oracle's BRM documentation. So
Oh, cool.
this is gonna be, think of it as your shortcut to understanding the complex world of billing and revenue management.
I like shortcuts.
Yeah.
So we're talking about how these systems handle pricing, track your usage, and ultimately determine what you owe.
Exactly. Think about all those things you use daily. Phone calls, streaming, even things like cloud storage.
Yeah.
All of those things. Every action you take, it generates data.
Oh, yeah.
And that data needs to be transformed into a bill.
That's a good point. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this, starting with the basics.
Sure.
How does Oracle BRM even begin to structure pricing for all these services?
Well, it all starts with deals. And deals are like bundles of services. So think of them as your phone plan or your internet package.
Okay.
They define what you get, how much you pay, and the terms of service.
So like my phone plan that gives me unlimited talk and text, but only a certain amount of data, that's a deal.
Exactly.
Right.
And deals can get really sophisticated.
Okay.
They can have all kinds of, allowing for add-on products like extra data or international calling.
Right.
So customers can personalize their plans.
Oh, that's cool.
Right.
So how does BRM actually track like everything I do and charge me accordingly?
Right. Well, that's where events come in. So every billable action you take, making a call, sending a text, streaming a movie, all of those trigger an event in BRM.
So it's keeping tabs on, it's like a digital detective or something.
Kind of, yeah. Each event gets analyzed to determine its cost.
Right.
And that cost is then reflected on your bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I go over my data limit, BRM creates an event for every megabyte I use. And that's how they figure out the overage charge.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
And those events don't just track charges.
Oh,
They also track credits or adjustments to your account.
gotcha.
So it's like a constantly updating record of your balance.
So it's not just, adding charges, it's also adding
Right.
credits and
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
that makes sense. That's pretty interesting. That's a good point. You know what I was thinking? I was thinking that companies need to be really careful with how they track these events and calculate these charges.
Yeah.
Because you could imagine, if they're rounding up call durations by a few seconds,
Right.
which might seem really insignificant, but
Right.
across millions of customers,
Oh, yeah.
it could mean a substantial difference.
Absolutely. And that's why BRM offers different rounding modes.
Oh, okay.
So you can round up, you can round down, or you can round to the nearest unit.
Right.
So companies can really fine-tune these settings based on their needs.
Oh, that makes sense.
So,
So there's a real strategic element to this.
For sure.
It's not just here's the math.
It's like
how are we going to round? How are we going to? Yeah.
it's a balancing act between maximizing revenue and
Keeping people happy.
maintaining customer satisfaction.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this whole process of analyzing events and calculating costs, this is where Pipeline Manager comes in.
Right. Pipeline Manager is like the super efficient chef in the kitchen.
Okay.
It takes the raw ingredients, the events, and then uses a recipe, which is your pricing plan,
Okay.
to cook up your bill.
Gotcha.
And all of this can happen in real time or in batches, depending on how it's set up.
Okay. So we've got these deals outlining the services and pricing.
Right.
We've got these events tracking every action. And then we've got this intricate dance of rounding and calculations
Yeah.
that determine the final bill.
Right.
It's a whole hidden world.
Yeah, it's a whole system, right? It is. But we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh.
So let's
A lot more.
there's more. Let's delve deeper into how BRM handles some more complex scenarios.
Okay. I'm ready for it. What's next?
Let's talk about sub-balances.
Sub-balances. Okay.
They're really interesting. They allow BRM to track different types of resources within your account,
Okay.
each with its own set of rules and expiry dates.
Okay. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Okay, so think about it this way. Imagine you have a phone plan that includes 100 free weekend minutes.
Okay.
BRM uses sub-balances to track those free minutes separately.
Oh.
So they expire correctly, even if your billing cycle ends, midweek.
Oh, that's a good point. So it's
Yeah.
within my account, there's all these little
Yeah.
sub-accounts or
So
sub-balances.
like separate compartments
Yeah.
for different types of resources.
That makes sense. That's pretty cool. And this granular tracking, This becomes especially crucial when we talk about things like rollovers,
Exactly.
like where unused resources are
Yeah.
carried over to
Yeah.
the next billing cycle.
You got it.
Like when my unused data rolls over to the next month.
Exactly. And BRM needs to manage those rollovers very carefully
Yeah.
to make sure that
To make sure you don't lose out on what you paid for.
yeah, you don't lose what you paid for, even if that resource has a different validity period
Yeah,
than your billing cycle.
that's a good point. Okay, so this is a really, really high level in detail here. It makes me wonder, though, if companies are tracking this closely, wouldn't it,
Yeah.
benefit them if we don't use all our data?
Right.
So is this like a subtle way to encourage, overspending?
It's a good question.
Hmm.
And it's one that highlights the importance of transparency
Yeah.
in billing practices.
Okay, so we've got deals, we've got events, we've got rounding complexities, we've got sub-balances, we've got rollovers,
We got it all.
all working together to create our bills.
It's a system.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we should know before we move on?
Yeah, there's one more important concept I want to touch on.
Okay.
And that's first usage validity.
First usage validity.
Yeah, this applies to resources that are only activated when you
Yeah.
first start using them.
Okay.
So think of it like a data pack that only becomes active when you first connect to the internet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So the system has to make sure it doesn't charge you
Right.
for that
Before it's active.
before the data pack is activated.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So it requires careful synchronization
Yeah.
between purchase events
Mm-hmm.
and real-time rating.
Oh, wow. Okay, so there's a lot that goes on to make sure our bills are accurate.
It's quite a process.
It's more than I ever imagined. It's really cool, though.
Yeah.
It's like a perfectly choreographed dance
It is.
of data and calculation.
It really is. And we're just getting started.
Oh, there's more.
Join us in part 2
All
as
right,
we go even deeper, exploring how these systems actually process events and ensure everything runs smoothly.
I can't wait. This is way more interesting than I ever thought billing systems could be.
It is, right.
Yeah,
It's a whole world back there.
it is. It is. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of billing. It's amazing to me how much goes on behind the scenes to make sure you're charged correctly for all these services.
It's true. Yeah, it's a complex process, but I think there's, a certain elegance to it, too. It's all about, managing massive amounts of data, applying rules consistently.
Right. So speaking of data,
Mhm.
let's peek behind the curtain here and see how BRM and Pipeline Manager actually process all these events that we've been talking about.
Okay, yeah, sure. So at the heart of it all is this thing called the EDR container.
EDR container.
EDR container. So think of it as like a digital file folder
Okay.
for each event.
Okay.
And it holds all the essential details, right? So from the raw network data to the calculated charges, even any errors that might pop up.
So when I make a phone call,
Yeah.
BRM creates one of these EDR containers to track everything about that call.
That's right. Yeah. It captures the time, the duration, the numbers involved,
Oh, wow.
even things like, what cell tower you use.
That's pretty detailed.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so the EDR container is created. What happens next? How does that actually get turned into, a charge on my bill?
Right. Well, it goes through a series of steps. It's kind of like an assembly line,
Okay.
Each step involves a specific module that performs a particular function.
So it's not just one big calculation. It's a multi-stage process.
That's right, yeah. So first, the raw data from the network needs to be translated into BRM-specific codes so the system understands how to categorize it and process it. Then your specific plan details, any applicable discounts, all of that needs to be factored in.
Right.
And finally, the actual cost is calculated.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And what happens if there's a glitch along the way?
Yeah.
What if there's some information missing or, there's some system error?
Right. Well, that's where Suspense Manager comes in.
Suspense Manager.
Suspense Manager, yeah.
Okay.
It's like a quality control checkpoint for any events that need special attention.
So events that can't be processed right away.
Exactly, yeah. They get suspended until someone can figure out what went wrong
Right.
and make the necessary corrections.
So it could be a missing data point, or it could be something that needs more in-depth analysis.
Yeah, it could be something simple, could be something really complex.
Wow. And this seems really crucial for, preventing billing errors
Oh, yeah.
and making sure companies don't miss out on revenue.
Oh, absolutely. Suspense Manager is...
It's a lifesaver.
Yeah, it's a key tool for maintaining accuracy and minimizing what we call revenue leakage.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So imagine this. Okay. Imagine I decide to switch my phone plan
Yeah.
in the middle of the month.
Okay.
Does that mean they have to go back and like recalculate all the charges from earlier in the month?
That's exactly what happens.
Really?
And that process is called re-rating.
Re-rating.
Re-rating. So BRM has a special re-rating pipeline.
A whole nother pipeline.
A whole nother pipeline that handles these adjustments. It's like going back and editing a recipe after you've already started baking the cake.
Oh, that sounds complicated.
It can be, yeah.
So how does BRM even keep track of all these changes and make sure everything gets recalculated correctly?
Right. Well, it's all about, careful tracking and meticulously applying rules.
Right.
So the system needs to figure out which events need to be re-rated, apply the new pricing, and then update the balance.
So even with all of these changes and adjustments happening, BRM is still designed to, like, maintain accuracy.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the power of these systems, right? They can
They're flexible.
They're flexible. They can adapt to changing circumstances, handle exceptions, and ensure that you're charged correctly, even when things get a little messy.
That's pretty impressive. Okay, so we've talked about the EDR container.
Yeah.
We've talked about this, assembly line of modules. We've talked about Suspense Manager.
Right.
We've talked about re-rating. What other tricks does BRM have up its sleeve?
Okay, well, let's delve into some specific features
Okay.
that really showcase the flexibility of BRM.
Okay.
Starting with quantity-based rating.
Quantity-based rating. What is that?
So this is how BRM handles tiered pricing
Okay.
based on how much of a service you use.
Okay.
So think about your internet plan, right?
Yeah.
If you
Right.
go over your data limit,
Right.
you might get charged more
Right.
for each additional gigabyte you use.
Ah, so it's like a progressive tax system
A good analogy.
for data.
For data, yeah, BRM is tracking your accumulated usage, and it's applying different rates as you move through different tiers.
Well, that's cool. So this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
It's not just a flat fee anymore. The price you pay actually depends on, like, how you're using it.
Exactly, yeah. And that's
Interesting.
it's all about offering flexibility and
Giving customers more control.
giving customers more control over their bills.
Okay, so speaking of flexibility, how does BRM handle situations where the pricing depends on, like, where you are? Like when international calls cost more.
Right. Well, that's where we get into zone mapping.
Zone mapping.
Zone mapping.
Yeah.
So BRM uses what are called zone models
Okay.
to define different geographic regions.
Right.
And then they assign specific pricing rules to each zone.
So, like, when I make a call,
Yeah.
BRM is checking my location
Checking your location, checking where you're calling.
and then, like, matching it to a zone to figure out the right rate.
Exactly.
Wow.
So it allows for really granular control over pricing, enabling companies to account for things like, distance,
Right.
network costs,
Right. They get.
regional regulations, all sorts of things.
Wow. I'm really starting to understand the, like, depth of these systems now.
It's quite a system.
It's not just like, add this number to this number.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like a whole.
It's very sophisticated.
It's considering all these different factors to arrive at the final charge.
Absolutely. And there's more.
Oh, there's more.
We've got to talk about offer profile.
Offer profiles. What are those?
So these define different quality of service levels
What?
based on your usage patterns.
Uh-huh.
So think about how your internet speed might slow down if you exceed a certain data threshold.
Right.
That's an example of an offer profile in action.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about, like, charging different amounts.
Right.
It's also about, like, controlling access to resources.
Exactly. So offer profiles allow companies to manage network capacity. They can prioritize different types of traffic.
Oh, wow.
They can offer different service levels to different types of customers.
So this is giving me a whole new appreciation for the complexity of billing systems.
Yeah, it's quite a world.
It's not just math. It's like strategy. It's like resource management.
It is.
It's creating this, like, tailored customer experience.
You got it. These systems are incredibly adaptable and designed to handle all kinds of different scenarios.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here in this part of our deep dive.
We have.
What else is there to explore in the world of BRM?
Okay, so we've talked about, the overall process, but now I want to zoom in on some more specialized functions within Pipeline Manager
Gotcha.
that deal with, very specific scenarios and challenges.
All right, I'm ready. Let's dive into those specialized functions. Welcome back to the deep dive. we're wrapping up our exploration of Oracle's BRM and Pipeline Manager.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, from the basic concepts of deals and events to the intricate process of event processing and re-rating.
It's been really fascinating to see how these systems handle so much complexity and still make sure that the billing is accurate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I want to zoom in on
Yeah.
some very specific functions within Pipeline Manager
Right.
that really showcase its ability to handle like unique scenarios that can pop up.
All right. I'm ready to see what else Pipeline Manager can do.
Okay, great. So let's talk about duplicate EDR checking.
Duplicate EDR check.
Duplicate EDR checking. So imagine a situation where, the network accidentally sends the same event data multiple times.
Okay.
Maybe there's a glitch or something.
So it's like getting double charged for a phone call?
Exactly. Yeah, like you make one call, but
Correct.
get billed twice. So Pipeline Manager has a built-in mechanism to prevent that.
Oh,
It can. It compares incoming EDRs
great.
with ones that have already been processed.
Ultra.
And it looks for matches based on things like timestamps or phone numbers.
Oh, that's smart.
And if a duplicate is detected, it gets, flagged and handled appropriately.
That's reassuring.
So you don't end up with those inaccurate charges.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh.
So what other specialized functions are there?
Okay, let's talk about call assembling.
Call assembling.
Call assembling. This is particularly relevant for those for long voice calls
Okay.
that might span different time zones or billing periods.
Okay.
So the network might actually break down that call into separate records
Oh.
for each segment.
So instead of one record for a 2-hour call, you might get multiple records.
Exactly. You might have, 5 records for a 2-hour call. And Pipeline Manager can piece all those fragments back together.
Oh.
So the entire call is rated correctly, even if it crosses those different billing boundaries.
It's like reconstructing a conversation from snippets of audio.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really highlights, the importance of maintaining accuracy,
Right.
even when the raw data is kind of fragmented.
Right. Okay, so we've got duplicate EDR checking, we've got call assembling.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Okay, this one might sound a little counterintuitive, but it's called EDR discarding.
Discarding.
Yeah.
Like getting rid of data.
Yeah, sometimes you actually want to get rid of some of the data.
Why would you do that?
Well, sometimes certain events just don't need to be processed.
Oh.
Maybe they're test records.
Right.
Maybe they're system-generated events, or maybe it's data that's just, outside the scope of billing.
So it's like filtering out the noise so you can focus on the
Oh.
important stuff.
Filtering out the noise so you can focus on what matters.
Makes sense. All about optimization.
Exactly. So by discarding that irrelevant data, Pipeline Manager can operate more efficiently
Got it.
and avoid unnecessary processing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got duplicate, EDR checking, call assembling,
Ugh.
EDR discarding, anything
Yeah.
else.
Okay, one more. And this one is called account routing.
Account routing.
Account
Right,
routing.
right.
So this comes into play when billing data is spread across multiple databases.
Okay.
So maybe
Like different types of customers.
exactly. Maybe you've got a database for residential customers and a separate database for business customers.
Right, okay.
So Pipeline Manager needs to make sure that each event gets routed to the correct database.
So it's like a traffic controller
It's like a traffic controller.
for data.
For data, yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so this seems really crucial for keeping the data clean and accurate.
Absolutely. It's all about maintaining data integrity and accurate billing across a complex system.
Right, yeah. This has been really eye-opening.
It's a whole world back there.
It is. We've learned so much today, from the, basic elements of BRM to these very specific ways that Pipeline Manager handles all these unique challenges.
Yeah, it's a fascinating system.
It is. Well, thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive. It's been
My pleasure.
really
I'm
interesting.
glad you enjoyed it. Remember, knowledge is power, right?
Right.
The more we understand these systems, the better we can navigate the complexities of modern billing.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a fascinating topic.